Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Grafe, the VP of Advisor Development here. We are going to get started in just the next moment or two. Just wanted to make sure, giving everyone a chance to jump on board. All right. Well, without further ado, again, welcome to our monthly call. Again, Michael Grafe here. I'm the VP of Advisor Development, taking over, giving Robert Metzley a much-needed break as he has been doing these calls every single month. He is on vacation and enjoying time with his spouse. Eric Smythe, who also would normally be here, is at home taking care of his wife. Had a little bit of a medical side that we just need to keep him lifted up in prayer. If we could do that, certainly appreciate it. And as always, as we start out, love to start this out in a word of prayer before we delve into the slides and into a Christian Wealth Management monthly meeting. So without further ado, Father God, I do thank you for this time, Lord. I thank you for just the CWM team, Lord. The fact that you've given us the ability to have iron sharpening iron, Lord. We do pray for our team members that are out, Lord, and just that your mercies would be upon them, Father God, that you are the great physician, Father God, and that you are in charge of all things, Father God. So we just humbly thank you for everything you're blessing us with, and just ask for your continued blessing upon us as we just delve into the way we can do our small part in helping push forward both biblically responsible investing and for your kingdom, Lord. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' mighty, mighty name. Amen. All right. Thank you again so much for making the time to make this call. We do have a couple of exciting things to go over, both with our coach, Eric Johnson, some of our slides that I put together on behavioral finance today, and just a couple of areas where I think that you can have a special ability to be unique in the industry, different types of accounts and areas where you're going to be the expert. Our mission. We are providing biblical financial guidance to inspire transformation in the hearts of people and businesses for God's glory throughout the world. This is something that we don't just say. Those of us who've been in Christian Wealth Management, I've been here since the very beginning. This is something that we put in practice every single day, and it is the best reason to get out of bed to start your day. CWM best values: blessings, excellence, stewardship, and transformation. One of the things we like to do is to get your best stories. One of the people that, as the advisor development, I get to meet with many of you. And I think a few of you already know who I am, but when you have questions or things that come up, I'm usually one of the first people that gets called because I've been doing this in practice, not just in theory, since 2005, but biblically responsible in particular, since I came to Christian Wealth Management back in 2010. Let's see, Eric Bloomfield. Let's see if I can give you, I think you are self-muted, Eric. Let's see if I can bring you down here. He is going to give us a best value story today. Eric, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, got you now as well. So Eric has come to us from the Portland, Oregon area. He has done a tremendous job implementing VRI. Went independent not too long ago, so he's certainly been working through the process. But he's had a couple of great ideas that he's actually implemented in practice. So I wanted to give Eric an opportunity to describe what he has done, and as well, in the particular story, how that led to a stewardship and transformation. All yours, Eric.
All right, so I'm getting a little feedback here on my end. Can you mute yourself, Michael, for a minute? How's that? It's still giving me feedback.
I'm not hearing it on my side, Eric. Feedback, and you want to go ahead and go speak through it. I don't hear it on my side. Eric, you still there? Well, I'll give Eric a few more seconds here. I shared with you our initial prayer. Eric Smythe, who usually handles all of our communications, is out of the office, so leaving me to control everything here today. Let me give Eric Bloomfield here another second, and then I'll tell you a little bit about his story if I don't get him back. All right. So let me give you a little bit about Eric's background and story here, since I've looks like he has lost his internet connection. So Eric is a 65 only rep, and one of his ministries he does is in the area of horsemanship. He does help along with kids that maybe don't have the opportunity to go horseback riding. But one of the things that Eric always does is whenever he's in a situation where he's riding, in this case he happened to be riding with business owners and pastors, is he literally asks them, unmute you again, Eric. You still there, Eric? He literally asked the leaders of this group if they know any business owners that he could have a conversation with the mindset of not necessarily going after their business, but just getting an idea of what it is that they do and how he might be able to implement some of their best practices into his own business. So really just using the stewardship idea of, God owns it all. We're managing his resources, and he was really just looking at the idea of how can I implement what they're doing into my own business practice. But in doing that, he got introduced to a couple of business people. One happened to own a aircraft company that literally takes old airplanes, and if you know anything about the airline industry, those private airplanes cost around about $1 million or so to get brand new off the assembly line. So in this particular case, what the company does is they take an older airplane, they basically gut it completely and redo it from the ground up, and it costs more like $750,000 to sell that. And everything from a new airplane engine to even having a parachute, so if the engine ever goes bad, it would parachute down to the ground. Long story short, Eric never said what he did and walked through the process of just trying to learn what these companies are doing. But in normal course of conversation, of course, they asked him, well, what do you do? So he started to share a little bit about what he does and how he uses biblically responsible investments and the like to help people put their finances with their investing, with their morals. And in doing so, that company said, we're Christian. We'd love to have that in our own 401k. So just by bringing up that conversation, he managed to make a transformation from a standard 401k to a 401k that's including biblically responsible investments inside the portfolio. Did I get you back, Eric?
Yeah, I'm back. That was my fault. I'm sorry. I'm not up on the technology end of things. So
well, hopefully I didn't steal all your thunder, but
no, you actually did a far better job than I would have done. So thank you.
Well, anything on your side you'd like to add to it before I?
Well, yeah, actually, it was just on the networking end of things. It was actually a little bit more intense than that, because essentially, just to kind of back up, when I just went and had coffee with one of these pastors that we had out on the trail ride, which is not what I normally do. I was filling in. And we're sitting there having coffee, and I asked him, I said, well, do you know any business owners? Because as a pastor of a fairly large church, you must have some business owners that you know. And it was very interesting, because he started scratching his head and said, well, I don't know, I'd have to think about that for a minute. And at that very moment, his brother-in-law walks up, who owns a business. Turns out his brother-in-law also has another brother who is the one who owns the aviation company. So it's just, you have to plant those seeds with people, because when you just ask off the cuff, do you know any business people? Well, I probably, but I have to think about it. And yet they're actually part of the family. So it was really interesting. And the story actually goes much deeper than that on the ministry side as well. We're actually working on some ministry efforts with the brother-in-law that walked up as we were having coffee. He owns a nonprofit counseling company, and we're working on some shared ministry opportunities with them. So, I mean, God was very much in that. And when it comes to nonprofits, most of the time, you guys are probably aware, then generally not super deep pockets. There are exceptions, but generally those are not the big dollar deals. But God, I just felt like God had said, "This is what I want you to be doing." And oh, by the way, here's some business as well. And so it was clearly directed by the Lord, and a connection that was supposed to be made. But the bottom line is, as a best practice, just talk to people. You never know where those opportunities are going to come, and it might just be through having a cup of coffee with a new friend. So that's my story.
We certainly appreciate it, Eric. And again, we'd love to hear from the field. So if there are stories out there, of course, you can kind of see that on the right. Share your best stories. So whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. And this is a perfect example of how God can take a small conversation and turn it into something else. And we see that over and over and over again when we. I say that we use the term "wear your faith on your sleeve." Now, I'm not talking about necessarily having to preach everywhere you go, but doing something like what Eric did, just talking a little bit about what they're interested in and sharing a little bit about himself. You'd be amazed how that just leads to other areas of business. With that, speaking of areas of business and expertise, certainly want to bring on Eric Johnson, our business coach. And I've worked with Eric both individually as well as company, and he does a tremendous job. So, Eric, without further ado, let me slide over to your slide.
Right. Can you
there we go. I sure can.
Great.
There we go. All right, Eric, take it away.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And a couple things. Number one, if I had known that Robert was going to be on vacation and that Eric wouldn't be in the office, I would have been happy to come out to California and help you, Michael. Just keep that in mind for next time if this happens, because anything to get out of the flatland of Nebraska. And Eric Bloomfeld, seriously, horseback riding, I will shovel anything you need me to shovel. Just bring me out. I'll brush a horse. I will, anything. That'd be great. Love that. And that's a great story because that kind of falls into what we're going to be talking about today a little bit. And that is the next part of it's the third part of our series. So if we could get the slide moving forward a little bit. Fortunately, I don't have control. This is part 3. How are you staying top of mind? And go ahead and click it again. We're going to see this a few different times. And I know this is cheesy, but here's the thing. I want you to remember it. Mom says, don't forget your B's and carrots. So be consistent. This whole list, this is what we're going through. And just remember, with carrots, they improve your eyesight. And that's what we're looking for from our clients. We want them to see us first when we are thinking about, or when they're thinking about something that they need. And we need to be top of mind for them. So we can go ahead and advance. Today, we're going to be talking about how to be relational. That is the theme for this section. And we can head right in. We're going to dive deep quickly. All right, so relationship defined. I love this definition. The way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being connected. So question is, how are you staying connected? Just some pointers here. Consistent communication, not constant. There's a big difference there. If we're constantly communicating, either we have a great, really, really, really strong relationship, or we're overdoing it and we're annoying. Okay, because again, nobody wants to get an email every 3 days from a business that's not personal, that's not really connecting with us on a personal level, that we just feel like we're being sold something. Quality, obviously, being authentic. We already spoke about that in part 2. CRM, which we're going to cover in just a minute. Social media, alerts, and I'm mainly speaking about Google alerts, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. And then the last piece is advanced client segmentation and time blocking. So looking at the right-hand side of this screen, this is from a website that rates CRMs. These are all different CRMs, and most people are familiar with Salesforce, Microsoft 365, or Dynamics. There's a lot of them in here that you probably know. One that I don't see in here that one of my clients uses and she absolutely loves is eRelationship, another great one to investigate. But there are a ton of different ones out there, and I'm hoping that you're using something besides a scratch pad or besides just a Excel spreadsheet to keep track of your clients, because these tools, once you get to learn them and know them, can help you immensely in being able to keep that contact not only consistent, but truly authentic, because you're going to have different reasons for reaching out to somebody. You can program into them that mean something. So remembering their birthday, remembering a married couple's anniversary, being able to send them a card, or many of these can be programmed. Some of them can actually be even tied into services that will send them a physical card. You can look into that for a lot of these. There's just a tremendous way that the technology can help you, but that's going to go back down to the last thing on my list there: advanced client segmentation and time blocking. You've got to make the time to learn this. Learning any of these CRMs is highly, highly important. It's a tool that you're using. If you don't know how to use the tools that you have in your tool belt, it doesn't make much sense. And this ties right into continuing education. Educating yourself on a good CRM system that works for you, you cannot skip it. Okay, that's just all there is to it, because we're all humans, and the more relationships that you get, I know that Michael took over Robert's book of business, and he already had his own, and right now he is inundated with contacts because of the relationships that he's built. He gets referrals more than anybody I know, and so as his book grows and as he's cultivating and helping those folks out, it boggles the mind how he's able to keep track of everything. And so I know that he does a great job with his relationships. So maybe he can give you some pointers as well when you speak with him. But you've got to learn these things. You've got to learn a good contact management software that will help you organize all this information. So social media, we'll talk about that just for a moment. Obviously, social media, they're seeing your information. You're not necessarily always seeing theirs, but that is another form of contact that can be very personal. Because you can put personal information about what you're doing, what your family's doing, so on and so forth, on social media when people are connected with you. Google Alerts, if you're not aware of what those are, look it up. You can actually, for prospects and or your clients, you can put some of their information in there that you'll be alerted if something happens. So if you know that you've got some folks that their grandson is going to state for football, you can put his name in a Google Alert, and it'll trigger something if there's an article that's published. So if he gets written up in a local newspaper, Google will tell you that they're written up in the newspaper, or that they played the game and he had a certain score or whatever. That gives you an opportunity to say, hey, I heard about Johnny. That's awesome. I bet you're so proud, so on and so forth. So again, there's all sorts of tools out there that are going to allow you to be top of mind in an authentic way, in a way that makes sense and is highly relational. To do that effectively, now, I don't know how many clients total Michael has, but I think it's close to 400 households, somewhere around there. And using advanced client segmentation, you can break down who you need to have communication with when. Eric does a fantastic job, it sounds like, with one of the things that advanced client segmentation can do for you, which is connecting you on a personal level with them on a personal level. So I had no idea that Eric was into horseback riding. I think that's fantastic. I love it. I love horseback riding. Personally, I don't have a horse. I have a motorcycle. And so if I had clients that were close to me, one of the things I would definitely make sure that I was doing, I would know all of my clients that liked motorcycles or rode motorcycles. I worked with a company down in Florida. The father was going to be, he was grooming the son to take over the business. Dad was 76. Son was 40 something. They both rode bikes, and we talked about them getting an afternoon or doing a poker run or a fun run, whatever you want to call it, on motorcycles with clients, inviting them to be a group. That's exactly what Eric has done, not necessarily with clients, but with people he's connected with on this horseback ride, to be able to just have conversations, connect relationally, doing something you both enjoy, right? A lot of the simple things where, we go play golf. Golf is great, but that usually limits you to 3 other people, right? So finding events that you can connect with that you truly do enjoy, and get plugged in with your contact or your clients and your prospects, that gives you time that you don't normally have. If you're going to do it anyway, do it with people that you enjoy being around and can kind of broaden your network. All right, so let's go to the next slide and cover just a few more things. I don't want to take up too much time here. All right, here's your 7 steps to better relationships. Time management. right? That's the first thing. Use time blocking to ensure it gets done. If you're not blocking time and being very, very specific and doing something with purpose, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. That happens to all of us, and it's not a huge slight against somebody. It's just the fact. I find myself, oh, when's the last time I actually called my sister? And it's my sister. So you've got to be able to block time to make sure that you're scheduling these interactions. Listen and take notes. I don't know anybody that can remember conversations verbatim. So when you're listening to your folks and you're gathering some information, make notes to yourself, because you're going to get busy right after your meeting. You're not going to have time to always put everything into your CRM or jot everything down afterwards. It's okay to take notes during the conversation, just little things that you hear that they like or they enjoy or they do that you can connect with them on. Number 3, have a real reason for the contact. Again, we don't want to just make stuff up out of the blue, but there's definite reasons that we can contact somebody, even if it is just to call and say, hey, you know what, I was thinking about you. Want to see if there's anything I can do for you. Can I pray for you or your family? Anything that you need. That's a real reason, and that's out of the blue, and that kind of goes down to number 7. It's a little beforehand, but it's surprising them. Don't just call for that quarterly review or we got to schedule your annual review. That's not what this is all about. Get true relationships, and you'll see a tremendous change in your book. Number 4, get physical. Not how you think it. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. Get physical, meaning get physical notes. Write an actual little thank you card, or write a thinking of you, or hey, what's going on? Send it in mail, regular mail, not in a business envelope. Get some cards with an envelope that looks like a birthday card or is the size of that, because when you get something like that in the mail, everybody opens it. If it's in a business envelope, it looks like junk mail. Okay, so get physical. And also the other part of that is meet in person. Go out to coffee, just like Michael was saying. Have an opportunity just to say, you know what, hey, Thursday I was going to get together with a few folks and grab some coffee at such and such. Just wanted to see if you'd love to join us. That's in physical proximity, being able to make eye contact and talk to them and spend some time. Number 5, let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's scriptural. You know that. The bottom line is, if you say you're going to do something, do it. We're talking about consistency and being authentic. If we tell them we're going to be reaching out to them next week, we have to make sure that we're blocking that time on our calendar to do that, because you're going to lose credibility very quickly. And then bring real value. Bringing real value to them is again, having a reason to contact them, but bring them something that means something to them, whether it's just a greeting, an offer for prayer, chance to meet, or, hey, I need to talk to you about the investments. We need to look at a few different things, or your insurance. We need to talk about, this is coming up soon, so we're going to need to cover that. That's all bringing real value. Don't just send them gobs of emails that just don't mean anything to them. And then touching on surprise them again. Lastly, there's other things you can do when you take those notes and when you get to know your clients and you use a CRM, you use a relationship manager, and you do advanced client segmentation. You're going to be taking these notes so you know more about them than they think you know. And to be able to surprise them, if you know that their favorite thing is snickerdoodle cookies, which that's my favorite, just out of the blue, it doesn't cost much. Drop some off at their office. Say, hey, I was going by Eileen's Cookies. That's a local shop here that makes the best. I was going by Eileen's and I thought I'd pick you up a dozen cookies. Just say hi. Those little things are mean so much. I mean, people will remember that, and especially when you do it to their office, all of a sudden you've got other people going, well, who is that? Oh, well, that's my financial advisor. How many of their financial advisors drop off snickerdoodle cookies to them? None. None of them. So this is where we can really set ourselves apart and again, stay top of mind. That's about all I've got. Michael, I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Eric, for the insight. And I will say that if you get a chance to utilize Eric, a lot of these ideas that he says, there's some easy ones that are in there that we just need to take advantage of. And I do a lot of them myself, but having the reminder to do it is huge. Also, as we move forward, if you have questions, feel free to write them down. I did see already one from Sean Weaver, and I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit later, but I will certainly answer your questions that you have. And I am always available as well, Michael@christianwm.com, if you do have questions on some of the things we go over here today. What I wanted to touch on today as well is just behavioral finance and an approach using BRI in the behavioral finance arena. Behavioral finance has exploded recently. Now there's degrees in it. There is, you can get your master's in behavioral finance now, I just learned. But what is it in essence? It's the study of why investors do some irrational things. Why do investors sell at the worst time and buy when we're at all-time highs? And why would I look at investing with morals instead of purely for profit and profit potential? One of the things I tell people that are implementing BRI is one of the best secrets I can give you is when you get people in the same mindset as you, so they recognize that they're not just buying a product or an investment, but they're buying a mission. Literally a lot of those things we talk about making those calls and doing those things, once they're on the same line with you, not only are they your advocate, they're staying with you, but they're also your advocate in sending referrals your way. So some of the masters of behavioral finance and some of their secrets, just using two off the top here. Dave Ramsey, very, very popular for the Common Man radio version. What does he do really well? He sticks to things like the baby steps, 1 through 7, just follow the steps. As a financial advisor and a CFP, you look at his investment allocation, 4 funds and 4 different mutual funds, very, very simplistic, but it works. He keeps things very, very simple. He talks ideas and dreams rather than a product. All of these guys sell via a story. Rick Edelman is very big on the radio here as well. His catchphrases, the truth about money, have a plan. Oftentimes he'll tell the tale of 2 brothers. All these things are picture selling and a way to really just get clients in a mindset so they're not necessarily thinking about how did that investment do. So when Dave Ramsey is an example, I steal his information all the time. When he talks about, he called it the foreign exchange student, the international side, he'll talk about how the foreign exchange student will do well when the US stocks are doing bad. Super, super broad, but the common man gets that. And again, they're looking then to, they have a plan. That's another Rick Edelman idea that he always talks about. You should have a plan. Again, we want to stay very high level with this. And just remember, it's both story selling, a lot of times telling your own testimony. Keeping it simple, though, is the bottom line. Don't recreate the wheel. Many have done this much longer than you. They've done it better than you. Feel free to steal what they've already done. And when I say steal, make it your own. People hear me all the time using Dave Ramsey-isms, and I tell them that right off the bat. So I'll say things like, Dave would say, this is a loser. And by that, I'll walk them through saying things like, this would be someone who's never increased their investments in their entire life. And Dave would say something like, you just breathe, you should get a raise at some point in your working career. You want to have clean and easy content when you are delivering this to your clients. Keep it simple and easy to read. I tend to draw pictures when I'm sitting one-on-one with the client because they get the picture. They want to understand the investment lingo many times, but they do get pictures. Now, for those of you who are using Christian Wealth Management's website, we do have a lot of these slides available. Some are buried inside bigger slides, but you can pull a slide out, make sure you get it compliance approved, but certainly utilize the tools that are out there. This is one that is not available on our Christian Wealth Management website, but I just found it humorous. These are just 2 ways I think of if you're looking at marketing and keeping it clean and simple. I was getting my car serviced, and no, I don't have a $100,000 automobile, but I'm sitting there in front thinking the one here on the left. So number 1, if you're in the market for a $100,000 car, do we really have to put a sticker on the top that says it's $99,975? I mean, seriously, are we going to buy this car and then have money left over to go to Sonic afterwards? I just don't really understand the mindset behind it, but I'm sure there's been marketing done to say that this makes sense. But again, if you're going to sell a $100,000 car, you take a picture on the left there, got bird poop right down the middle of it. If I'm going to sell something like this and I'm hitting that higher end clientele, I'm certainly not going to put this as my presentation as my best step looking forward. On the right, same dealership, but this again is in essence how I would expect a $100,000 car to be sold. Inside of a showroom, that's usually where you keep your higher priced products. Same sale price, but you notice they didn't plaster it on the car. They put it on a nice display right in front of it. So again, high level marketing is presentation. It's not everything, but it is most everything. If I'm looking at both cars and I'm saying to myself, I'm going to come in here and try to lowball these guys, I'm obviously would be much, I think, easier to lowball this car on the left than the one on the right. Again, presentation, we can certainly go into details. I like to keep things, again, very high level. So when you look at this marketing piece that we have, invest in the good, avoid the bad, give generously. We do have explanations right next to it, but we're highlighting it or bolding really the big picture stuff. We are providing biblical guidance. That's right on the top in that first sentence. Then we can get into the details. But very high level behavioral finance, people aren't going to remember all those details anyway. You want to give them something that they can hold in their hand and that's going to have some of the high level pieces. Again, what is your portfolio made of? This is one of my very favorite slides that we have because I think it encompasses, in essence, what we do. Diversification. I see the different pieces of fruit. I automatically think diversification. I see different things. And then with this particular slide, when I ask clients what their portfolios are made of, what do we highlight big? For me, my hot button issue is abortion, but all of these are things that are not, at the very least, are not beneficial. Most of them, I'd say, are sins. So when you have things like abortion and pornography being the two big ones, very few clients you meet with will be able to defend abortion or pornography when they're sitting down with you. At the very least, they're going to say it's not beneficial. You can kind of see we minimized a little bit gambling, alcohol, tobacco, because we can get a little gray here if you choose to. As an example, do I think it's necessarily a sin to have a glass of wine? No. The Bible's very clear, though, if you are drunk, that is a sin. So when the area is a little more gray, we make it a little bit smaller. When the area is definitely a sin or something that's going to be a lot harder for a client to disagree with, human trafficking, pornography, abortion, pretty much any Christian that I sit down with is going to say to those, no, thank you, I don't want anything to do with that. Some of the others, we may have to have a theology talk with them, but at least we're not hiding it. We put it there, but we highlight the big ones, again, to keep it simple. From there, we move into Evaluator. So again, we do recommend everyone having an Evaluator subscription or a means to do this. Again, our sister company Inspire has done some of these for some of your prospects as they're coming through to you. But again, big idea. This is a lot of detail in the Evaluator report. This is just the first page high level, but what jumps out at you is the red. It really pops. So if you're a client who happens to own Microsoft, you're looking at that saying, I thought Microsoft makes Windows. I didn't know they were in abortion, pornography, LGBTQ activism, and other areas, but it really pops. And when I present this to a client, many times what I do is show them, here's companies that you own. Here's what dollar-wise they are supporting or not supporting. And then I show them the top 15 companies, and I just get quiet and say something along the lines of, is there anything here that shocks or surprises you? And I let that awkward silence just stay there. Many times clients will say, no, nothing here. Or other times they'll say things like, Johnson & Johnson, I thought they were a family company. What do you mean they support abortion? Now you've got an in, because now there's going to be a conversation that at least can be had. And you can say things like, if you're looking at Bank of America, which is on, or Wells Fargo, which is on this list, their support of abortion is giving money to Planned Parenthood, which can be looked upon as a secondary offense. But Johnson & Johnson makes the saline solution that's only used in abortion. So that's a direct offense. That means if you own Johnson & Johnson, you're profiting every time an abortion is had. So is that okay? And it just it ends up being a simpler conversation because you're leaving it out there hanging of, is it okay? And if they say, I don't have a problem with it, you might have a bigger theological question, but you don't need to typically get into that. Typically, it's going to be, wow, I had no idea. Again, when you're doing behavioral finance, you're keeping it super, super high level. So the idea is really just to ask the questions and let the client really lead where it's going from there. Or you're directing, then you end up allowing them to let their hot button issues rise to the top. Speaking of that, if you're sitting with a client, you already are the expert. So now focus on connecting with the client. Not only are you the expert in finance, you are an authority on BRI. And the change we can make together and what we can do for God's kingdom, it also ends up being a great referral magnet. So as you walk through this, literally your testimony, explain what motivated you to come to BRI. So we've all heard Robert's story. Those of us in the office can say verbatim about his drive to Monterey every day and then how he was presented with BRI. And he thought about going into full team ministry. Mine's a very similar story. So when I tell my testimony, I walk clients through it. I was presented with BRI and how I literally looked at my own portfolio and literally had to sell everything at a loss, and then literally quit my job or left my job. And when walking out the door to visit Christian Wealth Management, I tell a story about how my wife said, "Are you going to go work for that Christian startup?" And I literally turned to her and said, "No, I'm just going to appease a buddy." And that was 7 years ago. So having these type of relational conversations, just telling your own testimony as to why you do BRI, what gets you excited about it, or what made you make a change, will resonate very well with your clients. The second piece is, again, the story sell, how changing Main Street will change Wall Street. So I'm sitting with a client, maybe they have a $100,000 401k that we're rolling over. It's that little story sell of, a small change with everyday people. So I'll tell them, if I can change someone like yourself and move that $100,000 account into something that aligns with your faith, so it's personal to them now, that can lead to bigger changes on Wall Street or in corporate America. Because we're not here just to be the stick beating you over what you're doing wrong. We also want to be that carrot of what can we do to make positive changes? How can we change these companies? And that's where the referral comes in very, very easily and nicely, because it's, the little change you're making, if I can get 100 people just like you, can you imagine that change that would have? Instead of 100,000, now we're talking 100 million or 10 million or whatever the number is, a very large number. Because a little number times a big number is always still a big number. So it's putting in that positive influence for them. And again, they're going to start saying to themselves, I got a buddy at church that I know is going to retire in 6 months, and he'd be really like this as well. The referrals do just kind of flow. It does take some time. So again, don't expect that overnight. But as you become over and over doing this, you become the subject matter expert on this, and it does lead to lots and lots of referrals. Again, make things your own. Get compliance approval, of course, but let your clients know how you're giving back and the difference that their investments can have for the ministry. This is something that we have done early on with Christian Wealth Management. You can kind of tell the logo on the top is a little bit different. We've updated our logo since then, but this is something that we do. Every dollar you invest at Christian Wealth Management is a dollar that's for transformation. And basically, your investment, if we make $1 on it, we give half of that or 50 cents back out to the ministry. So it's very clean, very simple, shows the money, where the money's going out to. And even if you're not doing exactly what this is, talking about what you do will certainly be a huge positive to your clients, because they can get behind what you're doing. Brings us to, again, we've talked about this in the past, Inspire, our sister company. This is something that they put out. I use this with my clients at Christian Wealth Management and say, maybe you own a little bit of Inspire ETF, or maybe you own Timothy Plan or some other biblically responsible investment. Your investments are really changing lives. So even if it's not something you've done, if it's something that you're selling or a product that you're using, it also can go right hand in hand. So take advantage of the stories the movement is doing. And again, your story selling here. So in this particular case, I talk about a well that was built last year through Inspire. But you'll notice on these pictures here, there's no Inspire name listed. There's no Michael Gray for Christian Wealth Management or anything else. And that ends up being the best story. So when I tell them this is Pastor Tara, what I love about what Inspire has done, or what we've done through biblically based investing, is this pastor is now going up to this village where you see all of these Nepalese people, none of whom are Christian. When he walks into that village as a Christian minister, now he walks in as the guy who's the hero who brought water to this village. Now he has their ear and can speak to the gospel because they have listening ears. So again, utilize what's out there. It doesn't have to be necessarily something you've done directly. It can even be something indirectly that's been done through a product that you're using. And lastly, on the slides on behavioral finance is, don't be afraid to show the numbers. So this again is from last month's call. You can kind of see Inspire 100 versus the S&P 500. But even if this chart was reversed, so this is really just showing clients that investing biblically doesn't necessarily mean a lower set of returns. Going back 5 years, you would have had a 5% alpha by picking biblically responsible instead of the S&P 500. But even if this was reversed, Mr. Client, let's say that you only made 13% and the world did 18%. Again, when you're speaking from a moral perspective or a worldview, the idea, clients aren't necessarily caring about returns. You have to be good enough so that you're in the game. But I would argue if you're doing 13% over that 5-year period, you're good enough. The fact that we're doing even better, to me, is just God's math. And again, that's something I use with clients as well. I'll talk about Abraham and how he had 1 child and his son had 1 child and twins and then 12. That's how God does math. So you can kind of see even on the beginning, the returns are pretty much the same for that first year. In fact, a little bit there, it looks like the S&P was beating us, but then you get God's math and the break starts to get wider and wider and wider. But even if that wasn't the case, would you be willing to invest? One of our advisors uses the storytelling of when speaking of investment returns, he'll use cat poop and brownie mix. And it sounds a little out there, but it works tremendously. So he'll literally say something, if I told you I was making brownies for you, but there's 3% or 5% of the mixture was actually cat poop, is that okay? And would you eat the brownie? So it takes something very graphic that people can picture and imagine and puts it back in their face and lets them make the decision of, hey, would I do that? So switching gears here a little bit, type of accounts where we do hold BRI Advantage. Again, this is just a sampling where you have advantages. You can certainly get a lot more information in a lot of these areas from Inspire, Timothy Plan, and Eventide. These are just a few of the companies out there. There's plenty of resources out there, but you will be unique in implementing this in your own community if you do it. 403b9 church plans. This is something that is a no-brainer that very few advisors know about. There's going to be a lot more on this. We're talking about having 403b9 church plan experts come in and talk on one of our future meetings. But the idea here is you can have a pastor who has a housing allowance built in, put money into their 403b. So as I say this, you're going to think it through. It's going to make huge sense to you. They put into that 403b, let's say their income is $50,000 of taxable income. They put away 10%. They just got $5,000 put inside of a 403b, got a tax break on that in that current year. In retirement, they take that money out as a housing allowance. It's now tax free. So you just gave that minister, in essence, a guaranteed return. So if they're in the 10% tax bracket, it's like putting money into a traditional IRA, but having it come out like a Roth IRA. Only available in a 403b9 church plan. So they, again, have special rules. In addition to that, housing allowance, it does also allow the ability to discriminate. So in other words, you don't have to necessarily give more to one or the same to everybody. You could literally say, I'm going to pay our youth pastor $3,000 in the 403b and give the secretary $100. No reason why you can't do any of that in a church plan. Timothy Plan just got in a partnership where they just launched a free version of this, and there'll be more to come on this as we delve more into it. It's brand new. But in essence, that takes away the internal cost of managing a 403b. So if you've got a small church with 2 pastors, there's really not a reason for them not to do this anymore because there really isn't a cost to the church at all. Other areas where we have advantage, ESAs or educational savings accounts, otherwise known as Coverdales. You can have BRI inside of a Coverdale if you use Timothy Plan, Eventide, or even things like Inspire on the ETF side. So you're assisting parents in paying for college or Christian school. So as you have that conversation, maybe you hear something like, I'm sending my kid to the local Christian school. Now you can have that conversation about an ESA or even to a 529 to a smaller extent. Can't make those BRI, but you can make them cleaner. And of course, probably your biggest area of opportunity is going to be in the active management side. Again, you are the expert when you sit down with your clients on BRI and as well on financial matters. So they're going to look to you for this active management. And very few people are following this principle in the advisor channel. So, as Matthew 9 says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So having said that, there are certainly many, many opportunities here for you to take advantage. And again, we'll be happy to go into more detail on this here in the future, but I certainly wanted to give you a couple ideas on areas where you have areas of special expertise. Again, we're always looking to add to our members. So same idea here. If we're having these conversations beneficial to you, we certainly would love to refer members, but also we'd love to have your input on our corporate engagement, member discipleship, BRI mentorship. Again, I've spoken to many of you one-on-one as the advisor development here at Christian Wealth Management, but we'd love it if, I've got a Sean Weaver in Texas who's been doing this for quite a while. If I can find somebody who's newer, in the Texas area who's looking to sit down with someone, I'd love to have that connection. Or Eric up in Portland. You know, we're building this across the country and is growing tremendously. So if any of these bullet points are things that you'd like to be involved in, please send an email to Robert and we'll get you set up on a team. I always like to end, before I get to questions, with a slide. So the greatest danger for most of us is not that we aim too high and miss it, but we aim too low and we reach it. So as we do things from a biblical perspective, you know, one of the biggest things that I will tell you is where we miss it is that we're shooting way too low. There are many opportunities in the BRI community, and again, there's so much opportunity out there, and it literally just means us to go for it and take the harvest in. And with that, I will certainly feel free to answer questions. So if you try to type in a question or text it to us, we'll be happy to answer it. Sean Weaver asked the question. He's curious how BRI was incorporated into a 401k plan. So in Eric's particular case, that was a new 401k. So I can give you a couple of different ideas on 401k sponsors, be it Pensis, be it a couple others, Aspire, especially for just a regular 403b, where they have open architecture. So you can be the 401k manager on those, and you can install mutual fund companies for sure, and many of them will have the offer for ETFs. Now again, with Pensis, I want to say they charge an extra $500 a year to have ETFs. They're getting less and less expensive, is the point. So many, they are truly committed Christians. Adding Inspire to a 401k plan, very easily done. I talked a little bit about the new 409 plans that are out there. But even if you have a client, I had a client that was in a big hospital organization. She literally would pester her HR department every single week with an email saying her conviction was biblically responsible investing. It took a year, but she was able to add Timothy Large Cap Value as the one holding that was biblically clean. So even just from the ministry side, if your clients are willing to be the advocate for you, many ways to do it. Also, huge opportunity in the 401k managed account side. So if you're using TPFG, or even just a client who's willing to allow them to manage their accounts, if they're using a brokerage window, that's also another huge way where you can actually have 401k management inside. Let's see. I use Pensis, and they have the ability to add new compatibility at no cost until you turn it on for business owners who will need the additional deferral but are not there yet. Excellent. The next question, that was from Eric. Joe's asking, the pastor who gets the housing benefit on the 403b can be retired when receiving that benefit. Absolutely. So when you are a pastor, you can do your housing allowance into retirement. So they're getting a little more detail about how they get a housing allowance and what they have to do with the IRS for that. But yes, once you do get a housing allowance and you are a minister who retires from ministry, you do get the housing allowance into retirement. I have an example of a alumni association here in town where he's a pastor technically, but really he's managing the Baptist Association. So he makes a fairly decent salary, but he puts as much as he can into that 403b, maxes out his completely, as well as the church plan also gives a matching piece. His idea though is he got the biggest mortgage he possibly can. I want to say his mortgage annually is over $50,000. And he did that on purpose because he uses all of his housing allowance to get tax-free money into paying off that house. But also in retirement, he's going to be pulling from his 403b using that same housing allowance to continue to pay the mortgage on that house. So you got a gigantic house with a huge mortgage. That won't be the most common, but just kind of gives you the idea when you're talking about housing allowance. The IRS ruling basically it has to be reasonable costs, your actual mortgage, or what it would cost for someone in that area, or kind of the thresholds for that. All right. All right, let's see. Any updates on Inspire Managed Money on InvestNet platform? Well, both of the people who would have an answer to that are not here with us today. Both Joe Verissimo and Robert Netzley are actually at camp for young adults or teenagers, so I don't have an answer to that yet for you, long story short. And any other questions? I don't see any other questions coming through, but again, feel free to email us if you do. Along that path, certainly I'll give another moment or two, but I wanted to close this out in prayer. Again, Father God, I do thank you for this group of committed Christians who are making a difference through using biblically responsible investment, Lord, and for our network of men and women that are utilizing each other as Paul would with having both a Barnabas as well as a mentor, as well as being a mentor, Father God. I just pray that each and every one of us are able to find that in our own community, Lord, that we can both mentor and be mentored. I thank you for just the opportunity you give us, Lord, with our clients, with having opportunities to have coaches like Eric, and just the CWM network in large case, Father God. You can just continue to grow it as according to your will, Lord, and just allow us to have that impact on Christians throughout the business world and throughout our own personal network and through our families. And just pray a special hedge of protection around everyone who's implementing BRI, Lord, as we know the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, Lord, but that you would be our hedge of protection, and that we'd be able to be that light shining on the hill, Lord. And we do thank you again for bringing us together and allowing us this opportunity and time to shine, Lord. We do thank you in Jesus' mighty, mighty name. Again, I thank you all for everything you've asked, and if you have any questions moving forward, do feel free to email us at info@christianwm.com. Certainly I'm available as well, michael@christianwm.com as well. Thanks again, and have a very, very blessed day, and we'll look forward to touching base with you soon.